How's it going, everyone? MrHunteru here, and today I'm going to talk about this little thing called anime. Yeah, I know, very original and completely unheard of for me. But we're not talking about just any regular animes today. I'm here to talk about long animes. I don't know why, but extended series are the cream of the crop, and they're really addicting. Titles such as Fate or Monogatari, Naruto, even Higurashi is gradually getting there. My love of series that are really long started with a little series you guys may have heard of called A Certain Scientific Railgun. A little while ago, probably around the very beginning of 2020, I have no idea why, but I kept randomly getting recommended Only My Railgun on YouTube. So I listened to it one day in hopes that it would finally leave my YouTube feed. Listening to it once turned into several times, then several more times, until eventually I decided to seek out the series it came from because I was so fucking addicted to it that I could not stop listening to it. I had little to no expectations of the series going into it, since I had no idea what it was about, and besides listening to Only My Railgun, I had never heard anybody talk about it before, ever. So I went on Crunchyroll, looked up an episode, and I started it. But to my surprise, I was absolutely hooked. I had completely fallen in love with the series. The Toaru Universe is a series of stories that all take place in Academy City. Each one ties into the other, and they all come full circle to form a very interesting, intricate plotline that is extremely enjoyable to follow. Think of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or DC's Arrowverse. This is basically that, but in anime form. It originated with A Certain Magical Index, a series of light novels written by Kazuma Kamachi that follow Kamijou Touma through his series of unlucky encounters through Academy City. Touma is a level 0, which means that he has no Esper powers, but he soon learns that he's not as weak as he thinks and is very powerful in different ways than being an Esper. Although it doesn't really matter because Accelerator is going to show up and outshine him anyways. The light novels ended up being a massive success in Japan, placing consecutively in the Kono light novel Gasugoi's top 10 rankings for almost a decade, rivaling other series such as Sword Art Online, Origairu, No Game No Life, and plenty more. Because of its success, it has since spawned 5 spin-offs, A Certain Scientific Railgun being the most popular, A Certain Scientific Accelerator, A Certain Scientific Dark Matter, A Certain Scientific Astral Body, and most recently A Certain Scientific Mental Out, 2 of which so far have been adapted into an anime. This isn't including the non-canon fun spin-offs such as Idol Accelerator and Everyday Index. As someone who is absolutely in love with the series, my weeb friends come to me sometimes and they ask me, Hunter, how the hell do I get into the Index series? Since, naturally, that many titles in the series can be extremely daunting for anyone that wants to start watching or reading it. Why waste time searching and browsing around to watch a complicated series with many entries into it when you could just watch a nice 12-episode anime? So today, my beautiful audience, I have brought to you a video that should be able to help anyone get into the magical and electrifying series that is Toaru. Now, this might be a surprise to all of you, but there really is no one way to get into the series. For example, I got into it by a very convoluted watch order. Giga got into the series from reading the first light novel and then watching the second season of Railgun, and my friend Mamadou got into the series just by watching Railgun. However, there are some things to know that will affect your enjoyment of the series and your understanding of some of the things that happen in the series. So I'll be talking about each anime entry into the franchise individually, then discussing some watch orders for the series. You can choose whichever one would be the easiest for you. Now, first, let's start off with Index. Index is of course the main integral piece of Toaru. It was the original, and its story is what every spin-off stems from and connects to. Because of its importance, you would assume that it's good, right? Well, not really. This might not be the most popular take in the world by any means, but basically the Index anime really sucks. Now, really sucks. Watching Index first is kind of like watching the original Stay Night series from Fate first. You're watching something that is shit, that might discourage you from the rest of the series. By the way, if you want to get into Fate as well, I'd recommend checking out my previous video on how to watch Fate. Anyways, that's not important. Index is an anime from 2008, and most of the time, it really shows its age. The show is littered with cringy, poorly aged humor, a large reliance on fan service, really bad pacing, and they did a really horrible job of adapting most of the characters. A good example is Touma. Touma in the light novels is a really good protagonist, and he's enjoyable and he's funny, and that doesn't come through at all in the anime. When I watched the anime, the only personality trait that I felt he had was that he punched things, and he gave a speech, like Naruto would from Naruto. That's it. That's like almost all he did. But the biggest issue of these 4 problems is the pacing. Index has absolutely abysmal pacing. Index 1 had one entire light novel adapted per 4 episodes, and for context, these light novels are usually around 200 pages. That is around at least 1,200 pages for one season, which season 1 actually does have decent pacing, I'll give it that, but that falls apart pretty quickly after it. Index 2 had a light novel adapted per 3 episodes, and Index 3 had a light novel adapted per 2 episodes. Index 3 adapted 9 novels into 26 episodes. 9! And it shows. It's so hard to follow, and you have almost no attachment to anything that is going on the screen. I was lost literally all of Index 3. I had to go to this Reddit to figure out what was going on from all the missed and cut content, because adapting a novel per 2 episodes is not smart. An example of a good light novel adaptation is Re:Zero, which adapted roughly around a light novel per 4 episodes. Again, Season 1 of Index in comparison had similar pacing to Re:Zero, although I personally believe some arcs in Index 1 needed to be a little bit longer. But the pacing for Index 2 isn't very comparable, and Index 3 is a monstrosity compared to Re:Zero. I have no idea why they decided to adapt Index, the main series of Toaru and a really successful light novel franchise, so poorly. Both of the other adaptations are done really well. Index was a gigantic disappointment for almost its entire run for me. If you are going to check out Index, which I do recommend that you do, because, you know, it's really important, I highly recommend the light novels. They are extremely well written, their humor hits more often than the anime's humor does, and like I said earlier, Touma is just so much better in the light novels. Like, he is a good protagonist in the light novels. Of course, though, these are just my opinions. You might end up really liking the Index anime for all I know, and there is nothing wrong with that. My goal here is simply to just give you information you'll need, such as the information about the other anime adaptations, like Railgun. A Certain Scientific Railgun was the first spin-off to receive an adaptation, and remains the most popular among them all, and the most long-running out of all of the spin-offs. Currently running around 135 chapters as of making this video, that have been coming out since 2007. The series focuses on the infamous level 5 in the series, Misaka Mikoto, as the author thought that she was underutilized in Index, so he gave Misaka her own series, and it's really damn good. While Index received the short end of the stick in terms of adaptation, Railgun started out strong with its first season, and continues to get better with each installment. I will go ahead and warn you that its first season has a lot of slice of life elements in it, and there are some minor bits of fan service, but that goes away entirely in its second and third season. Railgun S becomes a gritty exploration of morality with human experimentations, and shows a lot of the dark sides to Academy City, and it's non-ironically 10 out of 10. Railgun's sister arc is one of the best arcs of any anime and manga that I have ever seen, and I go back to rewatch it often because it just is that good. It's that fucking good, dude. The only downside to Railgun is that there are a lot of instances you're going to have watched Index or Reddit for full context of what's going on, which we can get into later when I cover the watch orders. For now, let's talk about the next spin-offs. A Certain Scientific Accelerator is the newest addition to the anime adaptations for this series, having come out around mid-2019. The series follows Accelerator, Academy City's strongest Esper and one of the best characters in the entire series. The adaptation was really good and it looked really great, but the source material for it is a little weird. I always thought it was a strange call to make a spin-off series for a character that was already one of the main focuses of the main series, but I digress. There really isn't a whole lot I can say about this series without spoiling parts of Index, so let's discuss watch orders now, shall we? As I said earlier, Toaru is fairly easy to get into, so what I'm going to do is offer you multiple paths to get into the series. All of them work really well and are effective. so feel free to go with whatever one works best for you or sounds the most interesting. However, I would like to note that you can't watch Accelerator without having seen Index's first season, since it takes place after the last half of the season. You also can't watch Railgun T without having seen both Accelerator and Index 2. There is also a movie called The Miracle of Endymion, although I would argue it isn't super necessary to watch and doesn't hold much weight with what's happening in the story. Since what I'm going to explain right now might sound like a bunch of mumbled garbage, the watch orders will be in the description too, so you can just cite that for what to do. With that out of the way though, let's get into the orders. Route A is probably the most straightforward out of all of them, which is release order. You just watch the shows in the order that they were released, which is Index, Railgun, Index 2, Railgun S, Index 3, Accelerator, and then Railgun T. It's really easy and the simplest out of all of them, although I'm usually against starting with Index since I don't particularly like it very much. That doesn't mean that it won't work for you though. Next up is the simplified chronological order. Route B will let the events unfold for you in a way that is nearly chronological in its flow, so that the story will be coherent and understandable. The order is Railgun, Railgun S, Index, Accelerator, Index 2, Index 3, and Railgun T. The last one is Route C, which is my order, and it is a real-time chronological order. This one surprisingly isn't very popular among the community, but I found it really effective as it helped me engage and it felt like I followed a continued story. The only downside to it is that you'll need to bounce around from title to title, and it is a little complicated. And this is about to get really wordy and probably a bit over-explainy, so bear with me please. So the order starts with watching the first 14 episodes of Railgun. Then watch the first 6 episodes of Index 1. Railgun will introduce you to the world and the characters, and Index is where things will start to get moving forward. After this, finish Railgun. The rest of the series will introduce a lot of things that will be integral to Railgun's story. Then, watch Railgun S up to episode 16. This is all of Railgun's sister's arc, which I really recommend watching the Railgun version as it is light years ahead of Index's version both in writing and animation. Index only gave the sisters arc 4 episodes to shine, while Railgun gave it 16. You see what I mean? After episode 16 of Railgun S, you can either finish Index or finish Railgun S. It doesn't matter which one you do first, you can do either of those, but you do need to watch them. Railgun S's second core covers an anime original arc that isn't important and doesn't happen in Index, while the rest of Index 1 will cover Index's part of the sister arc, as well as other arcs that will be needed. After you finish Index, you're ready to watch Accelerator's anime, which is an easy 12 episodes. Should not take you very long, and it is enjoyable. Then watch Index 2 up to episode 7, because after episode 7 of Index 2 is when the first half of Railgun T takes place, as it happens right after the events of the tree diagram arc. Yep, I'm not making this up. You watch 7 episodes of Index, and then Railgun T picks up right there. You can then finish Index 2 and watch Index 3 up to episode 6. Yeah, episode 6, another weird place to stop. Then finish Railgun T because its events take place after this part in Index, and then you can finish Index 3. Now, again, I know that sounds really complicated, but it's not that bad. This order, in my opinion, is probably the best out of all of them since it follows the series through very coherently and chronologically, so you will be able to understand everything that happens. But like I said earlier, you can really watch the series however you want to. If you want to watch Index and then read Railgun's manga, that's fine. If you want to read Index and then watch Railgun, that's also fine. There is no real wrong way to get into the series as long as you don't start by watching or reading Accelerator, because you will not understand what is happening in Accelerator at all. And with that, you have basically everything you need to take your first steps into the Toaru Universe. This series is ever expanding, always adding to its numbers and covering a wide variety of genres and stories. Its humor might not be for everyone, and some of its storytelling elements might not be the most appealing, but it is a very rewarding series with rich history, awesome power system, good world building, and just fantastic characters. I absolutely love this series, and I hope that after watching this video, you will too. A big thank you to Matt for supporting me on Patreon. I appreciate you, bro. You rock. And I will see you guys in the next video.